Guys, welcome back to another Truth Pump. We are bumping along with lots of truth sessions. Guys, this is, I would say, one of the most important tools that I can share with you. And today is all about pondering. And pondering, if you never really, had a direct experience of what pondering is, I'll share that, but I'll also share with you how you can get into a pondering state at will. And also, if you can understand how you get into a pondering state at will, it will support you in being able to get into flow state. So although today is more about pondering, pondering and flow state is, they're brothers and sisters of tools, if you like, so of methods. Okay, so let's get started with this topic. And it's quite interesting for me to actually share a topic with you every week, like I am with these truth pumps. I really need to get into a pondering state. And you always notice that you could always tell if you can really identify with what a pondering state is and what it feels like. You can actually notice me dropping in and out of pondering states. Always at the beginning of a call, I'm out of the pondering state, but it doesn't take long before I drop in, and you can feel it. And you can feel it because when I drop in, as long as you're completely open and you're not in resistance, or you don't have lots of stuff going on, like you're, in other words, present, you will feel my pondering state. We will feel it together. Like where the pondering comes from, you and I are one. And if you've ever been to a live event with me, in particular the WTF or the Limitless event, I actually brief. There's a pilot in me coming out with the word brief, but I actually share with the audience the idea of pondering without me telling them the idea of pondering. But what I do is I share with them, I say to them, don't listen to my words. Don't sit there. Of course, I get them to be present and get them to be open, be open-minded. But more importantly, after that, I just say, don't just listen to my words. Because when you're listening to the words, you're trying to get the words, and if you're analyzing it and intellectualizing it, you're trying to put it into a box, and that box is your existing reality. So you're trying to grab what I say and you put it into a box. And I say, don't listen to what I'm saying. Instead, listen to the space where these words are forming from. And, for the person who's never heard that before, it's I just put it simply for them, and something more simple. Don't think about what I'm saying, feel what I'm saying. To feel, one must be connected with themselves. One must be connected with their present moment. And if they are, they will feel where the words are coming from, because from that space, we are all one. And it's really profound. And you're going to understand, as I haven't even started. I'm sharing what I'm sharing right now because I find that as I start to share, it allows me to get into pondering state. So anyway, this will become more clear for you as I elaborate on the pondering and what it is. But I just want to point out, if there was one thing that I can give to you that is one of the most powerful tools, methods, practices that you can walk away from now, and I know that it will impact you the most on your journey and having direct experiences of some of the things that I'm sharing, some of the things that you're experiencing, it would be this. It would be the art of pondering at will. Not just randomly, not just by chance, but at will. So let's get into this. And I would say personally, and this is my personal experience of this. This by far is the most powerful method or practice that I know out there. And I've done many things. Even when I meditate, or if I meditate, it is to get into a pondering state. Because then you start to hear from the silence. You hear the silence speaks to you. So I found this, not only did it bring me into who I am today, this voice from pondering has guided me on my path, on my journey. And without the art of pondering, I wouldn't be sharing what I'm sharing with you right now. Because you're experiencing me right now dropping in to a pondering state. And you begin to feel it. My mannerism changes. It's almost like you start to channel. And that's what you are. Make no mistake, you are channeling a greater version of yourself. A version that does not live with all the blockages. A version that its space is not consumed by all the things that are taking up space. A greater version of yourself. Every time I am channeling a greater version of myself. And whether you're in a flow state, a creative state, a pondering state, you are doing the same. That's why when you're in a flow state, you did something that you may consider was a miracle. That you may consider it wasn't even me. I don't even know how I did that. Because it wasn't the you that you're used to that is limited to your 5 human senses, to your identity. It's not you as the identity. So there are 3. Let's call them types of pondering or tapping into whatever word we want to label. But there's 3 types. 3, you can call them levels if you like. It doesn't really matter. They're not higher or better. That's why I don't want to call it levels, but let's just call it levels. Or let's call it types. Whatever floats your boat. 1, which is one of the most profound, but it takes a lot of patience and it takes you an ability to be still, is the pondering that you experience in stillness. So that's 1. One type of pondering is what happens when you're sitting with yourself in stillness. So it's an internal process. You're bringing your attention from outside to inside. Very close to meditation. Very close to maybe even some breath work that's out there. Although by the end of this recording, I will share how you can get there with just 1 breath. Not multiple, just 1. 1 breath. This state of mind that I'm sharing with you is always 1 moment away. And all you need to do is let go of the moment that you're in, and the moment is there. And that's why I always say it's 1 breath away. But let's leave that for a bit later. That's a little bit more advanced, and it is. It's something that I wasn't able to do straight away. It took many, many practices to get to a point of realizing or getting into a flow state with one breath. And you will see this. Not that you need to, it doesn't prove anything. You saw me, I just started talking. When I started talking, I wasn't in flow state. But you see in my recordings, so many times I actually stop and feel the stillness, the silence. And what do? I wonder if you've ever observed it. And now that I say you'll observe it every time. This is what I do. One breath. And you're there. You may have observed that. So, the second type of flow state or pondering is in motion. So you have number one, in stillness. Number two, you have in motion. So this is more referred to when you are in flow state. Okay, because when you're in flow state, typically you're in movement. By the way, I just go back really quickly. I was going to drop in something for you, which I left out, and I'm just going to bring it back in right now. When you're in pondering state, your eyes are not necessarily closed. In fact, my eyes are open. So that's right there, because as I'm explaining this, you're like, oh yeah, this is meditation. This is where I get to when I meditate. But your eyes are open in pondering state. Your eyes are open in flow state. So you've got number one, your pondering that takes place in stillness. Number two, the pondering that takes place in motion. What's happening right now is happening in motion. There is a stillness, but the stillness is moving. And as it moves, words come out, words form, actions get expressed. And again, same for an athlete, an artist, or anyone who finds themselves in flow state. Sometimes people do crazy, dangerous activities like drive really fast cars, fly aerobatic aircraft, which I don't think it's dangerous, but when we're flying aerobatic aircraft, especially as we get closer to the ground, in fact, tomorrow I'm going to get my low level, because when you do aerobatics, you have to get approved. At the moment, I'm approved to 500 feet. Tomorrow, I'm going to get approved to ground level, so I could do aerobatic maneuvers down to the ground. Shit gets real then. You've become laser focused. There is no thought about anything else besides what's happening right now. So sometimes people find experiences that they get really drawn to and sometimes addicted to, right? I take up a lot of adrenaline people, right? Because through the adrenaline or through that experience, they're disconnecting from all other noise, all other times. They're completely connected to the moment. So that's how people find it. Sometimes people draw on it that way. But what I want to share with you today, if we go back to what I wanted to share with you, is how you find this at will. So let's go back to the education of this. So you've got number one, in stillness. Number two, in motion. Number one is internal. Number two is external. It's when I'm on stage. I'm recording a message for you right now. I am connecting with you right now. The words are moving me. The words are forming through me. That's in motion. Number three is it's the internal and external. It's a play that happens that usually gets instigated or initiated from the external. In other words, the external, you may see a sign that really means something for you. Now, for those who are into science, I'm not talking about walking around looking for signs, because that is you finding the signs. That's not it. A sign, right, or something meaningful will tap you on your shoulder. They say love finds you. You don't find it. So when you're looking for it, that's not it. A sign is something that finds you, right? And when it finds you, it's almost like the external pierces into the internal. It pierces, like you get moved. Like it's almost like, I sometimes refer to it in my events as a snap, crackle, pop. Like there's this realization, there's this direct, it's like almost that the experience you're having in the external pierces. You have a direct experience. You have you sometimes call these as spiritual experiences. Oh, well, it's a spiritual experience. Maybe that's not these days, but back in the days, people used to call it that. I don't know what you call it, but it's right now, you may be having many of those experiences that I'm referring to as I'm talking to you, whether it's right now or through other videos, the WTF in particular, the Limitless event, right? When I say to people, don't listen to my words, instead listen to where the words are forming from, that the external words that they're receiving pierces into their heart and they feel it. They have a direct experience of it. And I've got many examples of this, but one example could be what we're sharing right now, what we're experiencing together. I mean, this is the 5th or 6th truth bump for you right now. I mean, if you're still listening, this is because you're feeling something. This work is it's not to intellectualize and build knowledge. This is an experiential. The work that you're doing is experiential. You feel it, but you're doing the work externally. In other words, you're sitting here right now, you're listening to my words. Sometimes somebody gives you advice, and it pierces your heart. And in a good way, like you get moved. So it's the external moving the internal. Somebody outside of you said something. I remember the first time I decided to start sharing this work, because before this, I wasn't a speaker and wasn't a goal or an ambition to be a speaker. I was in the industry, but it's not something that I ever thought I could do or would do or wanted to do. And one day when I was doing nothing, because I was really soul searching, and I always say I took a sabbatical, trying to find myself. But I guess at the end of that, I got to a point one day, and again, you always know where you are when you have these experiences. Sometimes you remember the smell, you remember what you were wearing. Like it stays with you for life when you have one of these moments. And it was just, I was just at my mother's house having a barbecue with the family. And it's just something that my brother said. And it's not like, I go to my brother to get advice. It's not like if I say I go to my mother for advice, that makes sense. But it's not like I go to my brother. It's not like, we don't have that type of relationship where I go to him for advice necessarily. But in this point, I wasn't even looking for advice, but it was just the moment he said, why don't you start sharing some of this stuff? You've been in the industry. You've been promoting all these other teachers and speakers. And it's not like I never decided in the moment that's what I was going to do, but it's almost like a seed was planted. It came from the external. And then later I was like, yeah, I feel that. I'm going to speak. And it's real. It's a real feeling. So that's when I actually decided to start sharing this. Now, remember back then, I didn't have any speaking training. I didn't have any content to share. I didn't like it. I just knew I was going to share it. And then you find all these reasons of why it makes sense for me to do this, right? But they're just the reasons. It's the feeling that's real. You can always find reasons of why you should, but you'll also find reasons why you shouldn't, right? So don't worry about the reasons. What's the feeling? Another example is when there was a time where I stopped speaking, and I was traveling around the world in many different cities, mainly between America and Australia, speaking in a different city every single weekend, delivering my programs. And then one day I just felt like I'm not going to do that. So you've heard that story, or you will throughout this. And there is a very profound story. But to get to the point, for the next 6-7 years, I didn't speak. I didn't go on tour anymore. And, in fact, next month is the first time I'm actually getting back on stage and speaking. I'm doing an event in Sydney, and I'm doing an event in LA. And then the couple months after, I'm doing an event in Lisbon, in Portugal. It's been 10 years since I've gone to America to deliver this program. 10 years since I've even been to the States. So, long story short, I stopped speaking. I went and pursued my childhood dream of becoming a pilot. And I went and got my commercial pilot license. And for me, that was kind of a big deal because after high school, I never pursued anything. I just went straight into business, didn't do any courses, didn't have a university degree or anything. So it was a big accomplishment for me to get like a piece of paper that says I'm a commercial pilot. So I was a proud moment. And I remember going to my mother. Again, another barbecue at my mum's house. A lot of things happened in that barbecue. And I said, Mum, look at this. She says, what is it? I mean, she knows I was flying. And I said, I got my commercial pilot license, Mum. It's like I got a degree. I was expecting her to be really proud. She looked like this. That's nice. It's like, I start laughing and I go, what does that mean to mean? Like it's kind of a big deal for me to have this, to go accomplish this. And she turned around and said something that stayed with me forever and changed the course of my life again. And she said, when you speak and you share your message on stage, that's who you are. This is not who you are. And I was just like it was piercing just to hear that because, it was a different piercing. I was just like, my mum's not proud of what I'm doing. And she's like, you're not a pilot. She basically said, you're not a pilot. That's not who you really are. When you're on stage and you share your message, I see you. That's you. That's who you really are. And again, it became like a seed that almost started to sprout. And before I knew it, I'm sitting there in one of my ponderings and realizing she's right. I love flying and I still want to fly, but flying's my passion. But when I'm sharing what I'm sharing with people, it's who I am. That's when I become the greatest version of myself. And that's what my mum said to me when she said, I left a little bit out. She goes, you can't stop being who you really are. So that really, again, it's the external piercing the internal, right? So it's a voice or a message or an experience that has come externally, but it's pierced you internally. It's moved you. It's more than moved. And again, and sometimes it's, for me, I think that's enough reference, but otherwise we're going to be doing these in many sessions. But that's an example of how the external pierces the internal. But there's, all I can say is that you always remember, it's and it's not always, like both those experiences, like I just gave you, my brother who said what he said and my mum who said what she said. It's not like right there I went, oh, you're right. It was like a seed that got planted. And that's why the word pierced into your heart is the right word for me to use. A seed got dropped in there. And then with that seed, as it started to sprout, you started to realize for yourself, yeah, that is true. And that's how I came back. That's why you're hearing me sharing what I'm sharing right now, because I realize that's true. And today, most of my work is this. I actually cut my business down. I was working, we had a 7-day operation. We had a flying school. I cut that right down. I only fly on the weekends now, if that. The business is still operating, but this is who I am. Flying is my passion. So don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm not passionate about this. I am. But it's as my mum said, you can't stop being who you really are. And there is no greater stage or platform or opportunity that I have for me to become the greatest version of myself than what I'm doing here. In fact, I'll be honest, the reason I'm coming back to doing my talks, Sydney, Los Angeles, Lisbon, there's just a few, we just booked these events. It's because I just want to be, I want that platform. And again, platform not meaning like, put me up in front of people so they've got an opportunity for me to speak. Because this is a platform right now. I get to be the greatest version of myself in these moments. This is who I channel. That is why I'm going back on tour and getting back on the stage. There is something just a little bit different between sitting here and recording this. Although I feel like I'm with you and I'm recording this, I feel like you're here right now and you're listening to me. But there is a difference. And, I do a lot of, group coaching and one-on-one coaching and it's live. But there's a difference between me sitting here behind my computer and me getting up on stage. And the difference is everyone is live, not only in time or in the moment, but also in the environment, in the space. In other words, we're all together, not only in a moment in time, because I could be, you're listening to this in the moment. I do live coaching groups live via Zoom, via behind my computer. And you could say, well, that's all live because everyone's listening to that from, doesn't matter what corner of the world. Some people are listening to it at nighttime. Some people are listening to it during the day. Some are in winter, some are in summer. Doesn't matter. We're sharing one moment, but we're not in the same space or the same environment. It changes things. Now, I share that because that has something to do with pondering, which I'll elaborate in a moment. So just quickly recapture that. 3 types of pondering, or 3 levels. In stillness, in motion, and when the internal and external, it's like a dance that's happening. It's when the external pierces the internal. It's like somebody said something, somebody did something, and it pierced into your heart. So the external touches the internal, if you like. But touches is not the right word. That's why I've come up with the word pierce. like it pierce your ear kind of thing. So then the question is, well, how do we at will get into a pondering state? Well, I'll share with you how I do that, and I'll give you a couple of steps. And first of all, I've got events coming up. I've got a few keynote talks that have been booked up also. And when my first event is coming up in 2 weeks. By the time you watch this, I might be doing way more events. I don't know. But, it's been 10 years. And when I go and deliver this limitless event, which is basically WTF rebranded, before I get up on stage, I empty my mind. Now, some people will say, well, it's impossible to do that. And I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it is very, very difficult. In order for you to empty your mind, you need to bring your entire attention to yourself. So if one bit of my attention is who's here, how many people are here, as soon as my attention goes outside of me, right, I lose any opportunity for me to get into a pondering state or to get into a flow state. So your entire attention needs to be completely here with yourself. Now, I understand that's difficult, and sometimes you need to do that over and over again to practice. And it's fine. If it's not, to get into a pondering state, you can't force it. That's one thing you got to just grasp. You can't force it. So it's like you go to empty your mind, but just bring your entire attention to yourself. Not how, if your attention's outside, it's you're interpreting how someone's going to see you. What if I fail? What if I run out of what to say? What if I can't do this? It's been 10 years. Any thought, like the moment your attention's outside, that's what's going to happen. But if you bring your attention completely to yourself, you have the opportunity to empty your mind. But like I said, you can't force it. If you didn't completely empty your mind, there's still some stuff there, then that's fine. So be it. You get up on stage, and the stage here is life. This is not a public speaking, training, although that is something that's in the pipeline for me to actually train facilitators and speakers on this way of sharing. But another conversation for another time. I'm just sharing my process because through that I can teach you. If you completely didn't empty your mind, that's okay. If you're not okay with that and you're like, oh, it didn't get empty, and you try to, what you're doing is actually now filling up your mind. So the first thing you need to understand is you can't force it. You got to let it happen. You can't make it happen. I know you're used to making things happen in the physical world, in the story, in your goals or whatever. This is not the same. You need to let it happen. So you empty your mind, which I'm going to share with you right now. I'm going to give to you some methods on how to do that. But most importantly, what you need to understand is you can't force it. So if it's not completely empty and you're still disconnected and you're still distracted or you still have noise going on in your head, you're like, so be it. You get up on your stage. And again, the stage is your platform, whatever it is that you do in your life. Okay? And you just start with where you're at. You don't wait for it. Okay? You go without the empty of the mind. You go without not being ready. You got to be okay with not being ready. And people are always like, well, it's not the right time. I'm not ready. The only way you're going to be ready is by doing it. So you get up on stage, and I do this with you, whether I'm recording here or on stage, and I just be okay with not knowing where I'm going to go. And I start with Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm not in flow state right now, but be comfortable with not being in flow state. And I just start to talk. Sometimes, oh, yeah, where did everyone travel from? I'm just making conversation. But at some point, very quickly, it just drops in. The more comfortable I am with not being there yet, the quicker I drop into flow state. You notice the same with these recordings. Hey guys, welcome to Truth Pump. Amir's here. It's a little bit, especially me, I'm a little bit introvert, right? If you didn't know, that's the truth. I'm introvert. But the introvert comes in and it's like, maybe you haven't noticed and you just think I'm amazing. I don't know. But if you watch the recordings, if you watch the next one, if you rewatch this one, you notice that he's not in a flow state yet. He drops in. I don't wait. I press record, I go. I get up on stage, I go. The business idea comes, I go. That is something I've always known to do. Don't wait for it. Don't get me wrong, it's powerful to wait for it and be sure that you're ready. But at some point, if you notice that you're not emptied, you're not in flow state, you just go. You step forward. As you step forward, it's like a vacuum gets created. Your soul follows. So the first step is to empty your mind. I'm going to share with you how you do that. This might be a bit of a longer truth bump, but let's see how we go. The first step is to empty your mind. The second thing is to ensure that you're not forcing the idea of emptying your mind or forcing the result. In other words, I need to empty my mind before I move forward. Or I need to be ready. I need to be in a flow state. I need to be fully connected. No, just move and you will connect. So I'm using my analogy or my process of what I'm doing with you guys. It's the same with life. You're never going to be ready. It's never going to be the perfect time. The perfect time will be met when you move. Okay? So let's talk about, how to actually get into, well, that's how you get into a pondering state. Let's talk about how to empty your mind. I want to share with you my mantra that I share with people. This is something that I came up with. I label it as the mantra of being, or being mantra, whatever you want to call it. It's the mantra of being. What does that mean? It means it gets you into a state of being. State of being is where the pondering takes place, not state of doing. Don't get me wrong. You could be in flow when you're doing, but not when you're trying to do. You need to be, and then from the state of be, whatever you do, you're doing in flow. Okay? So to empty your mind, you know how I came up with this, by the way, this mantra? Well, I talk about this flow state. I mean, in my retreats, this is one of the biggest things that we actually practice. People have this direct experience of this every day. Every day, people will have a pondering realization of pondering experience. Okay, so and I'm trying to share with you what I share with people in a retreat, but you got to go do this on your own now. You don't have to, but that's the whole point of Truth Bumps. It's guiding you as you're doing this, with yourself. I say you don't have to because there is many people who are working with the Truth Bumps with me. So I'm or potentially a facilitator. And I don't know when you're going to watch this recording, but at some point when you watch this recording, if you're feeling like, I don't want to do this on my own, I want to be in a group, I want to meet with Amir every single week and be coached, or I want to be in a group and be facilitated by one of his facilitators, I just want to let you know that that is an option. Okay? So if that's something that, moves you and you're like, well, that's what I want to do. I'm doing this on my own. I want to do it with a group of people. I want to be part of their weekly sessions. Then reach out to our office and ask them, because and I say I don't know when you're listening to this, because it's not often I have availabilities in my groups. So, but reach out. I might have a availability. I might have a group running, or there might be a facilitated group running. So I just want to kind of let you know, because it's obviously far more powerful if you can share the journey, not just here listening to the recording, but live with a group of like-minded people in the same moment, with being coached and facilitated by myself or one of my facilitators. So I'll put that out there. But fine for you to continue doing what you're doing. So that I'm taking my time to explain everything to you for you here. So empty your mind. That's what we're talking about. So the mantra. How I came up with this mantra really quickly is people would ask me in my coaching, well, how do you get into a pondering state? How do you do? And one day I thought to myself, well, as I was getting in a pondering state, I was just like, how did I do it? How does it happen so I can teach this? And as I was in a pondering state, I thought to myself, well, how do I feel? I thought, I feel like there's nowhere to be right now. And then I continued to dig around. I feel like there's nothing to do. Continue to dig. I feel like I don't need to accomplish anything. There's nothing right now for me to accomplish. And I dug around a bit more and I'm like, I feel like I don't need to even figure it out. Like, it's pondering state happens. I don't even need to figure this out. And I thought, that's it. And I put together this mantra. By the way, I just want to add right now, if you want to have a deeper direct experience of that, go and do the oneness meditation as homework after this, which is free. It's included in your coaching, in the coaching app. Go and do the oneness meditation. I'm sure you've done it before, but go and do it again and let me guide you through that oneness meditation. Because when you get into the emptiness in the oneness meditation, you feel exactly like that. There's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to accomplish. There's nothing to figure out. In fact, nothing. One of the most common answers that people say when they do the oneness meditation is like, nothing matters. Nothing matters. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so in nothing matters, how does it feel? I just feel love. That's what it feels like when you empty your mind. It's very empowering. So here's the mantra for you. And you can write this down or come back to the recording and write this down. There's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to accomplish. There's nothing to figure out. Now people use that to empty their mind. This is super powerful, especially if you're doing in the stillness. Okay, so if you're sitting there to ponder in stillness, which we'll elaborate on in a moment, it's powerful for you to say, there's nowhere to be. Now, don't confuse this as an affirmation. It's not. This is a realization. You're saying to yourself, there's nowhere to be. Don't then run to the next thing. Say, there's nowhere to be, and acknowledge, you know what? Right now, there isn't anywhere to be. Acknowledge that. And when you acknowledge that, you then allow yourself to feel what it feels like to not have to be anywhere. And then you have a realization of it. So this is not an affirmation. This mantra is designed to help you have a realization. There's nowhere to be. Notice it. No, there isn't anywhere to be. Realize there's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do right now. I mean, I know you've got a to-do list, but right now, There's nothing to do. Acknowledge that and allow yourself to realize there's nothing to do. There's nothing to accomplish. I know you want to accomplish all these things, but right now, there's nothing to accomplish. Realize that. Acknowledge to yourself. Agree with yourself. Acknowledge there's nothing to accomplish. And have a realization that there is nothing to accomplish. Same goes with there's nothing to figure out. Now, I know sometimes you're sitting in a pondering state, or you're trying to connect to a pondering state because you want to figure all this stuff out. Just stop. Not right now, there's nothing to figure out. You can't force it. You can't make yourself get into a pondering state or a flow state. There's nothing to figure out. Acknowledge that. Yeah, there's nothing to figure out. Realize that. This is not an affirmation. It's a statement of realization. I just call it my mantra of being, because it allows you to get in a state of being. Now, by the end of this, and again, you can write this down in the comments. All this will be in the bottom of the video in the app anyway. At the end of it, or at some point, you may come to phase 2 of this mantra. And it goes, there's nowhere to be. And you have a voice for you to speak and say, I am here. There's nothing to do. Allow that voice to come and say, I am complete. There's nothing to accomplish. Let that voice come in again and say, I am enough. And then there's nothing to figure out. Let that voice come in again and allow yourself to say, I am knowing. So I would encourage you that after you finish your pondering session, or sometimes people, as you get more advanced in this, do the phase 2 level. So you're saying there's nowhere to be, but then you're actually allowing yourself to acknowledge there's nowhere to be. And when there's nowhere to be, you then allow yourself to realize that I am here. There's nothing to do. I am complete. There's nothing to accomplish. I am enough. As I am enough. There's nothing to figure out. I am knowing. So I've given you, just start with the phase 1 level, then, but write this down at some point and memorize it. You'll do this often enough and you'll just memorize it. But at first you might have to write it down and read it. But please remember, it's not an affirmation. It's a realization. If you're not stopping, giving space to actually acknowledge there's nowhere to be, and having a realization that you are here, it doesn't work. Okay? So this is really powerful as an internal process. So what I said to you, when you're sitting in stillness. Now, the thing about this practice is that you need to practice it. It doesn't just happen. Like anything, you need to practice it. Because at first, you're go into doing mode, right? But when you practice it often enough, you let go of trying to do it and you'll fall into state of being. So I'd really encourage you to actually allocate the time. So I want you to think of this. Who, when, and where. So who is, you want to connect with who you are. Okay? And by basically saying, there's nowhere to be, I am here. There's nothing to do. That's what that mantra is, connecting with who you're being. So remember, to practice this, you need to think who, when. So how often do you do this? It's the time. If you don't allocate time in your calendar to do this, you probably won't. Okay, so you need to allocate the time to do this. And when I say when, the best time to do this, and when I'm running my retreats, we get up before the sun just first light, before the sun's actually come up. And at first light, we sit in the silence and we do the pondering then. So if you want my recommendation, the best time to do this is first thing in the morning. Now, I know that's not always going to be possible, so I'll leave that with you. I'll tell you why the best time is first thing in the morning. Have you noticed first thing in the morning, there's a stillness in the atmosphere? Like there's a peace, a peacefulness in the air. You see, most people are still sleeping first thing in the morning. So there's all the noise from the egoic mind is shut down. They're asleep. So there is this quiet and peace in the atmosphere. You could do this last thing with a sunset, and it's still powerful, don't get me wrong, but everyone's awake. There's a noise in the atmosphere. Like, again, it's not really a noise, but there's a fullness. You got to be sensitive to this, I guess. Right? So my suggestion is do it first thing in the morning. So so you're connecting with who you are. When? First thing in the morning, if you're up for the challenge. And when I say when, you also want to allocate time for it. And when I say when, you want to be consistent. You want to do this consistently. You will notice your ability to drop into your pondering state will increase as you do it more and more at will. So who, when, where. Now it's important when I say where, it's either in nature or with nature. This is the most powerful point. It's go sit in the park, go sit on a hill with a view, go sit on the ocean. If you don't have that, sit with nature. So you either go sit in nature or with nature. So with nature could be with a plant, could be with a single flower. But it's important that you do it with nature. Why? Because you don't have judgments. There's no distractions. You don't judge nature. It's very neutral. And, I live in Bondi Beach. So one of the other reasons I love going first thing in the morning is because there's less distractions. First thing in the morning, there's just the early birds there and the sunrise and all that. But by distractions, I mean like by 11 o'clock or something, or sometime later in the afternoon, it's everyone's out in their bikinis and G-strings and, there's good-looking guys, good-looking girls. There's all kinds of distractions. There's noise. There's, I wonder what they're doing. Like, too much distraction. Although I'm nature still, my nature, Bondi Beach, is now too many distractions. So you need to understand that it is most powerful when you're doing it in nature or with nature. So find a place that you can allocate time at the right timing, first thing in the morning, preferably, or the quietest point of, where that's going to be quiet, at the right time, regularly, consistently. If you don't do it regular, you lose it. Okay, so what I'm sharing with you is a practice that will allow you to get to a point of being able to get into a flow state or pondering. Same thing, brother and sisters. They're brother and sisters, pondering and flow at will. Okay, this practice that I'm sharing with you will allow you to become more sensitive, more, connect deeper on your everyday life. I'll share with you one story, which, and this is probably, It's another sorry, this is not a podcast. Confused that for a sec. For a second, I thought I was doing a podcast. This is not a for this truth bump. That's for sure. We don't have time for this. And I really, to be honest, there's a part of me that doesn't want to share this because I'm like, oh, then then you try to do that. It's you need to go deeper on your journey. You need to have many pondering sessions. You need to do what I just said. Take my advice with that. Go and sit down there with your mantra. There's nowhere to be, nothing to do, nothing to accomplish, nothing to figure out. Sit. And as you're sitting in the stillness with nature or in nature, begin by listening to the sounds of nature, whether it's the waves crashing, but just observe. I'll come back to what I was about to share. Just observe the sounds. This will help you. Listen to the sounds. Don't go, oh, that's the waves crashing. Oh, that sounded like a big wave. What was it? Just listen. Listen to the sounds and slowly start to bring your attention back into yourself and devote your entire attention with your body and be as still as possible if you can. Just sit there in stillness. By the way, your eyes are open. So you still might look around, but don't move. Don't do fast head movements. Don't just look to the left and look to the right. If you want to have a look to the right because maybe the sun's coming out from the right, slowly move your head. Just notice it. No fast, jerky reactions. Just slow everything down. Slow your breathing down. Slow your body down. So we start by becoming aware of all the sounds outside. As you become more evolved and you practice more, you start to bring your attention completely internally and you start to hear. You start to feel and you start to see. Not with these eyes, not with these ears, not with these hands. And the energy there, the stillness moves you. And you have realizations, you have ideas, you have whatever that needs to come. You know you're in a pondering state because it feels like you're surfing the wave, where when you're not in a pondering state, it feels like you're swimming against the tide. One feels rigid, forceful, heavy. One feels like you're gliding. If I can share with you what it feels like. Okay, so that will allow you, and it's just like a muscle. The more you use it, the more you get into your pondering, the more. And again, remember, sometimes you might not drop into pondering. Don't force it. You're not meant to drop in today, right? Or if you are, you will, but you can't force it. I'm saying to you, it happens at will. But the moment you try to force it, you've lost your will. It doesn't happen then. So don't force it. Be okay with not dropping in. Okay? Most of my content that I'm sharing has come to me either in a pondering state where I've sat there in nature, or it's come to me live as I'm delivering it right now, behind my computer or on stage, or when I'm doing a coaching group or coaching someone one-on-one. It comes to me in the moment. So I just want to say that, like, I attribute who I am, what I get to do, what I have. Like when I say what I have, I'm not talking about the car and the home, which is that's nothing. What I have is what I'm getting to share with people. I attribute all that to my pondering state. Okay, so I invite you to practice that. Now, we're talking about breathing, and I just want to drop this in. And again, I'm not going to talk about this right now, but I promise you, I will do a truth bump about this. And I call it one breath, because this moment, or the moment that we're talking about being in a flow state or pondering state, is always one moment away. And it's always one breath away. And I won't share with you the one breath right now, but I promise you there's a point that you'll get to where, and it's not like you won't sit there and do your pondering in stillness, but you will be in motion and you'll be, and you're there. Now, some of you are like, oh, tell me about the breath one. That's the one I want. It's like less work. No, you've got to do that work first. You know, I fly high performance aerobatic aircraft. But before I could fly the high performance aerobatic aircraft, I had to fly a training aircraft. Before training aerobatic aircraft, before I learned that, I had to learn how to take off and land. All right. So I know some of you are like, yeah, no, but I'm advanced. I'll give you one story. And that's all I'm going to give you right now about the one breath. And it's a story about one of my, let's call them the elite coaching groups. This is a group that I've been running. It's a lifetime membership. It's called FTW, which is, by the way, WTF backwards. But FTW stands for Free the World. So anyway, this group, I ran a retreat. I do a retreat with them every year. In fact, this year we are in Portugal. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing a limitless event in Portugal, because I was already out there doing a FTW retreat. So anyway, long story short, we were doing a retreat. This was just out of COVID. So we did something local in Australia. I've got the FTW members from all around the world. So it was just when the borders started to open, and I said, guys, I have a friend who's got this retreat. She has ice baths and saunas, and it's a health wellness retreat. Let's just do a retreat here, because we normally do this exotic things, and in Portugal it's like, I won't go. That's not the point. So anyway, I said, let's do this retreat, and they all came and we were doing this retreat, and I said, oh, who wants to have a go at this ice bath stuff? And at that point, I hadn't done an ice bath. I think there was maybe 2 members and 2 of the guys who had done ice baths. And everyone's like, I don't know. And like most of us, we were just like, I like the warmth. Why wouldn't we get cold? And I'm going, hey, let's just try this. This is going to be an awesome experience. So anyway, long story short, we had a facilitator there for the ice bath who facilitated us for our first ice bath. And before you get into the ice bath, you've got to do all this breath work, which was awesome. I loved it. It was great. We sat there and, it's like, it's the Wim Hof thing, the Iceman, as they call him. So we did this breath work before we jumped into the ice bath. And the ice bath were cold. They were like, I think anywhere between 3 to 6 degrees, and we were jumping in there for 3 minutes. So it wasn't, it was pretty intense for a first timer. And we all got through it, and we just thought it was amazing, and we felt amazing for it. And so we ticked it off. So then I said, hey guys, why don't we do this? But this time, let's not do the breath work. Let's just take one breath. And these guys are familiar with the one breath. They've been practicing one breath. So it's not like it's the first time they went and did it. But I said, let's just before we go into the ice bath, we all just go and go. And everyone's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's see what the difference is. So we got around, and the facilitator for the ice bath was like preparing us, and he says, okay, let's do the breath work. And I said, look, we're going to do this on our own, if that's okay. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Yep, you guys can do it. And he stood there and watched it. So I started I was the first person to go in there, and I just dropped in. And I want to also add, it was beautiful. It was winter. It was raining. It was a beautiful day. It wasn't summer. And, it was, again, 3 to 6 degrees, depending on when you jumped in the ice bath. And I did the 3 minutes, loved it. And we all did it. And we realized that with the one breath, it made no difference whether we did the other breath work, whatever it was, I can't remember, right? Whether we did the breath work that was made for the ice bath, or we just took, and again, like when I say it's just one breath, there is a process to that. And it really requires you to do the work. And that's why I'm not even sharing it right now. But later, I will do a truth bump on this very topic, and it will be called the one breath. And who knows, I might do a guided meditation about the one breath at some point. We'll see. And if you're listening to this and there's a guided meditation in the meditation section of the app, well, lucky you got to go and do that. But the actual theory behind it, or the actual practice, and how I got to that point of one breath, I'm going to leave for a truth bump. So I just wanted to kind of, that's what I'll share with you right now, and that's why I always say it's always one breath away. It's always one moment away. Okay, so they're the three states of pondering or flow, internal or external. And how you get there is by emptying your mind. And I've just shared with you the path that I do, the path that I take. They're my state of being mantra that will support you in emptying your mind. So on final night, just remember, it's not an affirmation. If you're using it as an affirmation, it won't work. Or it won't work to the degree that it can for you. Okay? So happy pondering for you guys. And just remember, make the time and be regular. Be consistent. If you're not going to do it consistently, it's not going to bring the full effects that it can. So I'll leave that with you guys. And just a reminder, go ahead and listen to the oneness meditation, just for you to feel that emptiness again, and just go, yeah, you're right. When I'm in that emptiness, there's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to accomplish. Like, there's no need for anything. I feel love. I feel embraced. I feel expanded. Go and do the oneness meditation. And if you are someone who would love to share this journey and continue the work through the coaching app with other members and a facilitator or myself as your coach, please contact us. And if we've got availabilities, we'll slot you in. If not, we can put you on a waiting list, and you can be on there whenever a spot opens up. I say waiting list because we always limit it to 10 people per group. All right. Happy pondering, guys. I'll see you in the next Truth Bump. Hey guys, well done. You've just completed this video. How do you feel? I'm just here just to remind you that in order for me to continue to support you, it's important for you to continue to support this work. Please like this video and also press subscribe, and remember to press the bell icon as well so you get notified every single time I release a video. I'm going to be releasing so much content here that's going to support you. If you're looking for something even more, like you're looking for a community to be part of, some extra support, some extra coaching, you're looking to share your journey with other people, then go ahead and visit my website at amirzoghi.com, and there'll be some information there on how you can be more involved. Also, I read all the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. I want to release these videos for you. I want to support you. I love to see how it's landing for you. What's your experience of the videos? Do you have any questions? So remember to comment below, and I'll be responding to those messages as well. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next video.